The courtroom fell deadly silent, as though every breath had been paused, waiting. The air was razor-sharp, carrying a tension that squeezed the space between bodies. The long, polished benches on either side of the aisle, dark oak, worn smooth by decades of use, seemed to lean in, pressing the assembled spectators closer to the center. Pale morning light filtered through tall, narrow windows, slicing the room into angled strips of illumination that danced across the rich, varnished floor. At the far end, the bench loomed, a heavy slab of wood elevated above the sea of faces, its surface clear except for a single brass nameplate and the massive, silent gavel waiting like a judge's scepter of justice. A bailiff's voice broke through the hush. Cold, precise, public yet somehow intimate, as if scolding just one person. "Ma'am, remove your jacket before approaching the bench. No hesitation. No softenings." The words landed like stones on a pond, sending ripples through the courtroom. Heads turned, eyes flickering behind glasses and across hairstyles, fixing their gaze on the woman at the heart of it all. She was in her early 40s, though age had etched itself in subtle lines around her eyes and wrists. She wore a plain black jacket zipped high to her neck, no collar, no decoration, just smooth, matte fabric. Beneath it, perhaps a simple blouse, the color of dusk or hopeful spring sky the onlookers could only guess. Her shoulders squared, spine straight, as though she wore an invisible harness of steel. The steps up to the bench were few, but they rose like a threshold between worlds, the ordered ritual of legal protocol and whatever lay beyond words. She didn't flinch, didn't plead, didn't hesitate. With one fluid motion, she reached behind her neck, sliding her hand beneath the zipper. The fabric parted, unbroken by clasps or buttons, and she eased the jacket downward, shrugging it off and folding it neatly at her side. The movement was reverent, almost ceremonial, as if disposing of a mantle she no longer needed. Then the moment arrived, simple, swift, and world-shifting. Her left forearm, once concealed, came into full view. Against ivory skin, a tattoo glowed in stark contrast, a pair of wings, meticulously inked, curving outward like the embrace of unseen arms, cradling a combat cross at their center. The image was small, no larger than a silver dollar, but carried immeasurable weight, a cipher of remembrance and promise. It was both delicate and unyielding, beauty formed in grief and forged in fire. The judge, a stern figure draped in black robes that hung like midnight, froze. His gavel hovered as though time itself had arrested its descent. The brass scales emblazoned on his bench seemed to tip, suspended between impulse and tradition. His eyes, concealed moments before behind dark-rimmed glasses, now gleamed with recognition, the lenses forgotten on the bench before him. His breath caught. The whole courtroom held its collective inhale. None spoke. The gallery of faces, the attorneys, the bailiffs, the stenographers tapped keys in suspended rhythm, every sound muted beneath the gravity of that single symbol. It was a mark he knew too well. He had seen it first under a scorching sun in a land of dust and relentless wind years ago. A medic's wings, promising rescue under fire. The cross, a tribute to fallen comrades and a vow to bind the living to memory. In that moment, he realized the woman before him was no mere defendant. She was the same hero who had saved his life. The woman's name, Elise Carter, was spoken softly in the opening statements. To most, she was a property owner accused of unlawfully sheltering a runaway teen. A respectable foster mother who, in the eyes of the law, had broken policy by harboring Marcus Reed, a trembling 17-year-old whose story was woven with neglect and erasure. But Elise Carter was more than a name in a docket. She was a veteran medic, twice decorated for valor, twice wounded. She had walked through gunfire and grief, clutching lives back from the brink. Elise stood unmoved. She folded her hands before her, eyes calm, voice steady when she spoke her name for the record. No tremor betrayed fear, no quiver of defiance. She embodied a taut serenity, like a bowstring pulled taut, ready to release an arrow of truth. The prosecutor rose, buttoning his jacket with practiced precision. He recited facts, missing reports, the ministry's order, the sanctity of procedure. He painted Elise's actions as rogue, dangerous, and undermining of systems built to protect. He spoke of justice, of accountability, and of consequences. The gallery watched him nod, some in agreement, others skeptical, as though weighing the morality of punishing compassion. Across the aisle stood Elise's attorney, a younger man with earnest brown eyes and a patient tone. He did not vilify the state but appealed to a higher code, conscience over policy, mercy over blind legality. He told the story of Marcus, a boy whose bruises spoke in silent pleas, whose eyes pleaded for refuge from a system that had failed him. He spoke of Elise's home, a simple ranch house beyond town limits, its walls lined with photographs of children who had come and gone, each portrait a testament to her workers' hands and a community's lapses. But then, when the attorney prepared to call Elise to the stand, when he lifted his gaze, ready to humanize her with testimony of compassion, the tattoo intervened. The judge's gavel hovered, then fell with a gentle click. The judge, voice low, interrupted the proceedings. "Madam," he said, nodding toward Elise, "no further witness testimony is necessary." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor's carefully poised stack of papers shivered in his hand. The bailiff stiffened. Even the reporters, pens poised, eyes wide, pivoted forward. The judge removed his glasses and placed them on the bench beside him. He rose, robes whispering against polished wood. His voice, when he spoke again, trembled with emotion that hovered at the edge of decorum. "This court has reviewed the charge harboring a runaway minor in violation of fostering statutes. The defendant acted outside the parameters of official policy. Yet I cannot believe she acted outside the boundaries of human decency." He paused, searching Elise's face. "Some follow orders," he said, "and some follow something greater." Silence pressed in. Time slowed. Even the air felt reverent, as though honor had entered the chamber. "All charges are dismissed. Madam Carter, you are free to go." The words floated, gilded by recognition and awe. Instinctively, a handful in the gallery rose. It began with the dozen veterans seated at the rear, men and women whose own uniforms hinted at shared scars, who straightened their backs and stood. Then a woman in the front row, hand over heart, rose, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. One by one, others joined. Not in protest, but in silent solidarity. The bailiff, who had spoken so coldly, looked down, shame tinting his cheeks. He pivoted away, eyes averted. Elise nodded once. No smile, no flourish. She bent to retrieve her jacket, as though settling a final measure of propriety. She slid it on, the black fabric falling into place, the tattoo hidden once more. Then, with deliberate calm, she gathered her file and descended the few steps from the bench, her posture unbroken, her spirit unbowed. Outside, on the courthouse steps, the morning sun was stronger, the sense of space unconstrained by paneled walls. Marcus Reed waited, face twisted with relief, eyes red from tears. Elise paused at the foot of the stairs. He launched forward, embracing her leg. She placed a steady hand on his shoulder, brushing a damp lock of hair from his forehead. "No one left behind," she murmured. He looked up at the tattooed curve of her sleeve. "I know," he whispered. "I know." They walked down the marble steps together, their silhouettes casting long shadows in the light of a new day. Behind them, a congregation of onlookers spilled out of the courthouse, some whispered blessings. Some wiped tears, others simply stood reverent and quiet. The story of Elise Carter would ripple through the town and beyond, a story not of courtroom procedure, but of courage born in silence. That afternoon, in her house on the outskirts, where rescued dogs tumbled at her heels and photographs of forgotten soldiers lined the walls, Elise sat at her kitchen table. Marcus perched opposite her, spooning oatmeal in measured bites. The morning's verdict was behind them now, yet its echoes still hummed in the gentle wind through the open window. Outside, dogs barked in welcome. Inside, the hum of the refrigerator was a lullaby of normalcy. Elise traced the rim of her coffee cup with a fingertip, thinking of the child in the desert, the blur of sand and blood and smoke. Of the friend who had slipped from her grasp, life ebbing in her arms, and the vow she had inked into her skin that very night. No one left behind. The memory was both blade and bomb pain, sharpened by loss, softened by purpose. She thought of the judge, his voice wavering with recognition, and wondered how many battles he had fought in silence, too. Hatreds born of policy, reconciled by compassion. Outside, a robin alighted on the fence, its song bright against the late summer air, a comforting reminder that life thrived beyond struggle. Elise exhaled, feeling the tight coil in her chest unwind. She turned to Marcus. "What do you want to do today?" she asked. He chewed thoughtfully, eyes brightening. "Can we fix that old bike in the garage? The one with the bent wheel?" She smiled, a small, radiant break in her usually composed expression. "Let's do it." Together they rose and headed toward the back door. The dogs greeted them with eager barks and wagging tails, brushing their bodies against her legs in towing urgings toward adventure. Elise paused, looked back at the photos on the wall faces, half smiled, eyes alight with gratitude, and found herself whispering the words again. No one left behind. In the quiet hum of domestic life, in the simple acts of nourishment and repair, in the rescue of a child from fear and neglect, she fulfilled that unspoken promise. No courtroom, no prosecutor's bar, no policy could bind the fierce obligation born of blood and memory. Sometimes the loudest courage was the one that never raised its voice, the one that let a tattoo speak in its stead. And so they stepped into the sunlight together, one who had been lost, one who vowed to save. The world waited, breath held, for acts neither loud nor public, but steady and unwavering, the silent battlegrounds of love and sacrifice, where every saving gesture bore witness to wings inked upon skin, a cross cradled by feathers, and a vow that rang louder than any gavel's fall.